The fight had already dragged on. The unsuspecting Xie Pingqing charged headlong into another attack. This was just a trap cleverly set up by Xu Wuzhao. Pingqing was hit by a powerful blow that almost threw him from the arena down on the audience. He was incredibly lucky because he kept his feet on the very edge. Some overly optimistic fans of the Qi family fighters claimed that these opponents were equal in strength. It was just that Xu Wuzhao was lucky in this episode. This is not an indicator of strength at all. However, to the experienced Xi Guangping, everything was already clear. He told his student that he was a complete idiot. Xu Wuzhao thanked him for giving him 1,000 taels, which were immediately handed to him. Guangping asked him, did he hide his strength for so long and skillfully just to fight weak opponents? Wuzhao, who was counting the money in concentration, thought with joy that Xi Guangping didn't know that he was just pretending to be Xi Pingqing's equal in strength so that he would lose to him later. Xi Guangping called him an impudent bastard and promised to make sure he died in this ring. He offered the young man another deal. If he won another match, he would give the Chai family's Xinqiang market to his family and add 2 silver taels on top. If he loses, he will not have to pay anything. Then he asked for Wuzhao's opinion on the matter. Wuzhao read everything from his master's facial expressions, and Xi Guangping gloatingly thought that this young master was quite a spender. While the young man was thinking about the proposal, his father-in-law shouted at him not to listen to Guangping but to go home. However, Xi Guangping mockingly said to Xu Wuzhao, let him hide under his wife's skirt and be a pitiful worm for the rest of his life. Doesn't he want to fight against him? He called him a coward. The young man then replied that since he wanted to provoke him into a fight with him, fine, so be it. He agreed to all the conditions that he had just announced. As soon as the first show ended, the audience felt the approach of another, no less impressive one. Qin Qingmo worriedly warned Wuzhao to be careful when facing the new Guangping fighter because he was using a special technique. Wuzhao addressed all the viewers. He said they should be honest. They all looked down on him just because he is a son-in-law. Today, he intends to tell them the truth. Xu Wuzhao is a proud and unyielding person who is not offended by other people's words. He never thought that he would kill 2 birds with 1 stone, impress his wife and make money. What is it called? The main character. Xi Guangping, meanwhile, suggested that Qi Shan, one of the strongest masters of the Qi family, go up to the arena and teach this braggart a lesson. He advised him to destroy the brat with his best move. The big man replied that the master should not worry, he would not make any more mistakes that his predecessor had made. Some tried to shame Xi Guangping, accusing him of having no conscience at all, because Qi Shang is at the 3rd level of Huqin, and he clearly surpasses the level that Xu Wuzhao has. Why doesn't he get in the ring on his own? Guangping smugly replied that there was a rule in family competitions: the champion couldn't enter at the beginning. After all, Brother Xu had endured all this humiliation for so long. It would be boring to just beat him up. Once he defeated Qi Shan, he would immediately become famous. He, on the contrary, helps Xu. Isn't that right, Brother Xu? Wuzhao seriously told him that he was about to receive his thanks. Xi Shan, who had already entered the ring, shouted loudly at him, "Can this arrogant brat hold him for a fool?" He rushed forward and delivered several powerful punches, which delighted all the spectators. Everyone was sure that the young man would not be able to withstand Huqin's 3rd-level strike. This time Wuzhao would definitely come to an end. It looks like Xu Wuzhao is out of luck this time. He definitely won't survive this round. Once again, the sympathies of the people watching the duel had gone over to the Chai family side. And they shouted, meaning Wuzhao, that he was a weakling, so a weakling will die. Now they cannot be afraid of his revenge. What an idiot! He agreed to this fight for the sake of 1,000 taels. We can assume that he is already a corpse. Those onlookers who had bet their money on Qi Shang's victory said that if this kid had won the round, they had no idea how much money they would have lost. But today, they are definitely lucky. Frere's greed has ruined him. He went up against a 3rd-level Haoqian power holder, and now he won't get a penny and will surely die in this ring. At this time in the arena, after evaluating the opponent's strength, Wuzhao said that it was rather weak. All this time, he was only pretending to make Xi Shang overestimate his strength. Then he landed a serious blow to Shang's head, which nearly knocked him out. All the spectators in the stands gasped. They couldn't believe what had happened in the arena. Shi Shan panted as he told the youth that he had reacted well in a difficult situation and had attacked him faster than Shang had him. It looks like he's just mocking him. But he is happy early. He will now show him where the crayfish spend the winter. After a second, Wu Zhao's father-in-law Qin Shibo exclaimed in disbelief, "What the hell? He just died." Stopping at the edge of the arena, Xu Wuzhou proudly asked, "Who else wants to go up against him in a fair fight?" A startled whisper went up from the crowd of spectators. To put down a third-level Hao Chan fighter in one blow is simply unbelievable. Many people suspected that Wuzhou's cultivation was no lower than the 5th level of Hu Tian. This kid has been hiding his true power for so long, it's even frightening. The Tsai family members decided not to provoke the fighter anymore, so that he wouldn't cause them any problems in the future, because Kaiju Wuzhou could undoubtedly reach unprecedented heights. It will be necessary, on the contrary, to strengthen relations with him. Shi Guanping thought with fear that brother Shi Shang was sent to the forefathers with just one blow, and he was the strongest fighter among the elites of his family. What kind of power had that little brat Xu Wuzhou been hiding all this time? At this time, the young man walked up to Guanping and told him, holding his chin, what he liked, what he was thinking about now. Shi Guanping was thinking about him now. Guanping ordered him to get his dirty hands off him, and Wuzhou reminded him of his debt of 1,000 taels. The gentleman immediately handed over the money and said that this money was not a pity for him, because this amount would not even be enough for a hair transplant. After recalculating the money, Wuzhou reminded Guanping that he still had to fulfill his promise and thank him for his actions. Then the head of the Tsai family suddenly had an idea, and he said that he only now understood why Wuzhou hid his power from everyone. He just wants to use a bride with a large dowry to get more money. How low it is. He told the youth not to get in his way again. His strength is still not enough to fight against Shi Guanping. If that happened, he would die in agony at his hands. He's already bought a cage for his wife. He advised him not to do anything with it, leaving it for him. Xu Wuzhou told him that when he was ready, let him come to him to show off his skills. Shi Guanping clenched his fists until they cracked, but refrained from attacking because Qin Sili was present. He just hissed after the departing youth that he would destroy him one day anyway. Qin Yan asked Qin Qingmo for her opinion. Did she think Xu Wuzhou was the best fighter among the younger generation in Linen? She replied that in the city, apart from the top 10 natural-born masters like her father, only about 10 people can reach level 5 or more. Yun said he was a dead man then. He'd hit him a few days ago, and obviously he hadn't forgotten it yet. The nurse replied that now he would have to ask her for help. At this time, Wuzhou's voice came from behind him. Qin Yan anxiously asked his sister for help, thinking that Xu Wuzhou wanted to finish him off. His brother-in-law was surprised by his behavior and told him that he only wanted to give him advice on his fighting style. He calmed Qin Yan down and suggested that he take a little walk and have some fun. Qin Yan, realizing that the punishment for his offense was being lifted, hurried to express his congratulations to Xu Wuzhou for winning the family tournament. He assured him that he had absolutely no doubts about his victory. He was immediately congratulated by his father-in-law, who appeared from nowhere, greatly frightening his son-in-law. Wuzhou muttered that this wasn't a greeting, but a murder of some sort. Qin Sili couldn't hear what he was mumbling and expressed a wish to congratulate him once more. Wuzhou assured him that everything was fine and said that he was not the best son-in-law before, but now he wants to improve and asks his father-in-law to give him a chance. He just wants to be a good person. King Sili said that then he needed to take care of the Tsai family's Shangqing market, which he had just won in the tournament. The son-in-law made a request to the father-in-law. He said that he almost destroyed his Xu family, but now he would like to fix everything. He requested that the Xu family's property of 10,000 taels of silver be returned to him. The father-in-law, referring to Xu Wuzhou, said that if anything he guessed that Wuzhou would ruin the Xu family's business, so he had to sell all their property and keep these 10,000 taels for him. Now that he was an adult, it was time to give this money to him. It was a difficult choice, but it was made for the sake of his family's future. Wu Zhao listened carefully, his inner world intertwined with emotions and thoughts. He felt the recognition in his father-in-law's words and realized how much effort had been put into securing the future of his family. The father-in-law continued that now that he had grown up and become a strong young man, it was time to pass on this family capital to him. This money can become the basis for his path to success and independence. But he must remember that power is not only in money. It is in his determination, in the wisdom he has acquired, and in the ability to act with honor and dignity. Xu Wuzhao felt warm in his heart as he listened to his father-in-law's words. This money became a symbol not only of material support, but also of the trust that was given to him. He nodded, showing his willingness to take on this responsibility. He sincerely thanked Qin Sili for his faith in him and promised that he would be honest and resolute in his actions to make their family name a pride in Lingyan City. My father-in-law smiled. He said with pride and respect that Xu Wuzhao's words make him happy. The father-in-law wished the young man good luck and that this money would help him in the future path of improvement. He assured his son-in-law that their family was always there to support him in his time of need. Xu Wuzhao's joy was boundless, and he warmly thanked Qin Sili for this unimaginable gift. He thought about how with these 10,000, he already had 12,000 taels accumulated, which would allow him to rise several levels in cultivation. Lin Qingxi suddenly walked up to them and asked if he could talk to Xu Wuzhao in private. Her father-in-law told her to apologize properly to the girl, and Qin Qingmo thought that her husband would have to overcome himself. In a secluded spot at the back of the garden, Qingxi ran her hand over her chest and asked the youth if he liked it. He can touch it. Wuzhao told her that her veins were throbbing so much that he didn't think it was arousal, but varicose veins. He would help her with it as soon as he could. He warned her that it was better not to delay the treatment, otherwise it would get worse later. Qin Wuzhao advised her to stop her magic tricks. He remembers exactly what happened that night. She dragged him to her room. The girl asked him who would believe him. All anyone remembers is that he had fun with her. The youth asked Lin Qingxi why was she provoking him. Qingxi replied that it seemed like the time had come to tell him everything. Wuzhao said that he was disgusted with her and didn't want to see her. Lin Qingxi resentfully asked Wuzhao, is she really disgusting to him? She threatened to scream at him and he would regret it. The young man asked if that was all she could do. The girl proudly replied that, in fact, she has the 3rd level of Haochen, and if he does not apologize to her right now, then she will attack him. Wuzhao calmly replied he had just killed Xishan, and his cultivation level was similar to hers. Then he asked the girl if this information was enough for her to discourage her from fighting him. The girl was surprised to think, is this really the same Xu Wuzhao that she knew earlier? The young man gave her a final warning not to get in his way. Otherwise, he can't guarantee that he won't do anything to her afterwards, and her thighs and breasts are still very good. As a token of their friendship, he would spare her this time. But next time, let her not expect such a gift from her. It all depends on her. With that, he left her alone under the tree. Left alone, Lin Qingxi thought that she wouldn't stop there and just give up. She's obsessed with this man. Wuzhao met Yu Feng, who announced to him that he had heard about his victory in the Qi family tournament today. He warmly congratulated the youth, and Wuzhao asked what he was doing here. Feng replied that, of course, he had come to celebrate the victory with him, brother Xu. He took him by the shoulders and led him in an unknown direction, promising him that he would not regret the place they went to. Of course, Yu Feng took him to a brothel, where he treated him to numerous pleasant dishes. The 2 girls pestered him endlessly during lunch and promised to give him new and lasting impressions. However, Wuzhao thought that unfortunately, the local girls didn't look like the ones in the house at all. All of them are not very attractive here. He only decided to enjoy the delicious food that Yu Feng had kindly paid for. In the midst of the meal, he was horrified to see a very angry father-in-law enter the restaurant. Wuzhao turned to him and asked if he told him that he came here for the chicken thighs, would he believe him? Yu Feng also looked scared, because Xu Wuzhao has a very stern father-in-law. Meanwhile, Qin Sili irritably told his son-in-law that he had hoped that Wuzhao had changed. He wanted to give him those 10,000 taels, but that's out of the question now. He ordered him to go back so that he could lock him in the barn again. While mentally cursing Yufeng, Wu Zhao thought about how he now owed him 12,000 taels. As he sat alone in the locked warehouse, his thoughts swirled around the fact that no one should lay a finger on his wife, but if he did something wrong, he was immediately locked up. Because of this, he may not be there for his wife at the right moment and will not be able to help her. Then he told himself to forget about it and focus on increasing his own strength. After all, after winning 2 matches, he still had the strength to break through to the peak of Hutian. He decided not to waste any time. Then his thoughts drifted back to the brothel where his father-in-law had caught him. Wu Zhao sincerely regretted that he didn't have enough time to eat at that place. Unexpectedly, his wife Qin Qingmo appeared in the warehouse and brought him the food that she had prepared for him. She put a dish in front of him and said that she didn't know if he would like it or not. Wu Zhao was grateful to his wife for making him something to eat. It must be so delicious. He devoured the dish with gusto, exclaiming that it was delicious, so that he would always live like this. His grateful gaze went to his wife, who was standing in front of him with a smile. The aroma of the freshly prepared dish had already filled the air of the warehouse, and it only served to increase Wu Zhao's already ferocious appetite. His wife smiled back at him, her eyes sparkling with joy. She was glad that he liked her cooking. She could see that he was genuinely enjoying his meal. Wu Zhao guessed that Mo probably knew some magic formula to make each dish perfect. My wife laughed, blushing a little at the compliment, and said that she didn't know anything about the magic formula, but she tried to cook with love. Then they continued their conversation, smiling at each other and sharing moments from the day before. Wu Zhao simply enjoyed the food and the presence of his wife. At that moment, he felt genuinely happy and grateful to have such an important person in his life. Qingmo then suggested that he go to a literary meeting with the Shi family tomorrow and keep her company. Wu Zhao was very happy with Qin Qingmo's suggestion. He said that his wife's hopes are what her husband should always strive for. He promised to become stronger and protect her honor from anyone who dared to encroach on her. To which the girl replied that it would be just a literary meeting and advised him not to take everything so seriously. Then she said goodbye and left. Outside, she told herself, thinking of her husband, that he was so easy to please, that it was a pity that he couldn't get along with her family. Meanwhile, in the empty warehouse, Wu Zhao was thinking that if his wife invited him to meet her friends, did that mean that she was starting to accept him? So he just had to behave tomorrow. At the same time, Shi Guangping was running amok in his house, smashing dishes and cursing Xu Wuxiao. Damn kid, how did he manage to level up his power like that? He needs to be killed, and as soon as possible. A servant brought him his hat and tried to calm him down. Guangping somehow came to his senses and said that tomorrow the Shi family is hosting a literary meeting. Qin Mo is taking Xu Wuxiao with him. He told her to tell Lin Qingxi to take Qin Mo far away. Wu Zhao would definitely start chasing her and let the 2 elders intercept Wu Zhao halfway. The servant asked Mr. Ping when Xu Wuxiao became useless if it would be a blow to the boy. Shi Guangping shouted, how dare he doubt him? The terrified servant fell to his knees and told the master that he should think that all his orders had already been obeyed. Xu Wuxiao ran swiftly down the street, dodging obstacles and passers-by. He wondered why his wife hadn't asked him to come first. He's dealt with Shi Lei and Shi Sen, and he still doesn't know if Shi Guangping said anything to the Shi family about it. If the Shi family found out that his wife was in danger, he should meet her soon. Then he stopped abruptly in the middle of the street and thought something was wrong. Why is this street so deserted? His wife had clearly said yesterday that she would take him with her, so why was he alone now? Could this be some kind of conspiracy? Xu Wuxiao ran through the streets with the speed and agility typical of an experienced fighter. His entire course of action indicated his intention to get to the Shi family's home as quickly as possible, where the city's grand literary club event was being planned. Suddenly, his trained eye caught something strange on the sidewalk, a long and distorted shadow. Wu Zhao's heart skipped a beat, and he instantly knew that this might be an ambush. Once at a safe distance, he noticed the silhouette cast by the shadow. He realized that this was a dangerous opponent waiting for him. Xu Wuxiao assumed a posture of alert, tensing his muscles and waiting for the next move from the enemy lurking in ambush. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a man dressed in dark robes. He smiled slyly, as if he knew that Xu Wushu understood his intentions. He was sorry that he had guessed the ambush so late. An incredible force descended on him, which he barely dodged. The cobblestones crumbled to dust. Only Master Hao Chen should have had such power. Shi Guangkun and Shi Guangmeng, the two elders of the Qi family, appeared in front of him with drawn weapons in their hands. Xu Wushao, seeing the two Qi family fighters in front of him, thought of Chai Guangping's sincere concern for him. After all, he had even sent two Huqin masters to train him well. These two elders would be real sparring partners for him. The brothers, seeing that Xu Wushao had recognized them as belonging to the Qi family, felt surprised and somewhat uneasy. After all, this meant that the young man had a well-developed information base, and perhaps they were not the only ones following the course of events. Shi Guangkun said that they were here to give him a lesson. They will not kill him immediately, although no one knows what may happen in the course of the struggle. Xu Wushou understood that no matter what purpose these brothers had, his job was to protect himself and reveal their intentions. Xu Wushou tilted his head slightly, adopting a fighting stance. He was prepared for battle, but he also understood that the strength of his opponents contained a masterful training. The Kakai brothers clearly wanted to kill him, expose his weaknesses and strengths. The battle began. Wushou and the Tsai brothers made their first moves, and it soon became clear that the masters had discovered much more about him than they had expected. His attacks were precise and powerful, his evasions and defenses lightning fast. He read their movements, predicted their strikes, as if he knew their intentions beforehand. With every passing moment, it was becoming apparent that Xu Wushou was not just a trained fighter, but also a master of his craft. Its hidden power began to reveal itself, and the Tsai brothers realized that they were facing a dangerous opponent. It wasn't just physical strength that burned in the battle, but also willpower, experience, and strategic thinking. Every move was like a dance of death, and in this dance, Xu Wushou was increasingly proving his unrivaled strength and skill. The masters understood the hidden power in this nondescript-looking guy. The young man corrected them and said that, to be precise, it was not power, but strength. But they still want to kill him, don't they? He explained to them that it contained the power of 30 bulls, so no Haochen master could fight it. Shi Guangping knows how to intrigue. He sent you here, obviously, so that a young fighter like him could gain experience faster. Shi Guangkun held up his sword, called him an upstart, and volunteered to show off his fighting skills, which would really give him some real experience. Wushou noticed the strange power of this master. Every time the darkness fills his blade, he feels the threat grow stronger and stronger. What is this combat technique? Guangkun took the sword in both hands and told the youth that it was time for him to go to hell. Wushou knew it was bad. The master combined 9 first-level combat techniques and was able to increase his strength by 9 times. Shi Guangkun cast the blood-slash battle spell. However, Xu Wushou wasn't going to give up just like that. Guangkun was surprised at the strength of his opponent. Is he really that strong? But it's a waste of time for him to rely on strength alone when fighting against a top-notch martial artist. Sitting on the roof of the building, Lin Qingxi thought that this was definitely a sword of determination. She asked Yu Feng if he had noticed that this sword was charged with determination earlier. The young man replied that if she didn't feel it, he certainly wouldn't have noticed it. Meanwhile, Xu Wushou was impressed by the first-rate master Shi Guangkun's abilities. One man asked his brother if he was all right after being struck by the sword of determination. Kun replied that it was fine, but something was bothering him. How did this kid manage to dodge his insidious strike? Kun turned to Myung, his eyes filled with determination and a thirst for victory. He told his brother that they needed to join forces. Together, they would be able to attack Wuzdao and finally deal with it. There is no time to be cautious, otherwise it may become even more dangerous. Myung, looking into Kun's eyes, felt tense. He knew that the stakes were high and that success depended not only on their strength and skill, but also on their strategy. Myung agreed with Guangkun. They need to act quickly and decisively and not forget that it is not as simple as it may seem. He has incredible strength and skills. They need to be careful and keep it under constant control. They decided to limit Xu Wushou's maneuverability. If they can get it to work in a limited environment, it might give them an advantage. Both masters gathered their resolve and formed a plan of action. Their goal was the same: to kill Xu Wuxiao. After understanding the intentions of the Qi family elders, Xu Wuxiao decided to fight them to the death. He used all his abilities, but soon he felt that the strength of the two masters was so great that he might very well die here. He even mentally bid farewell to his wife, Qin Mo, and hoped that he would be a good husband to her in the next life. Xu Wuxiao found himself in a difficult situation, and he realized that if he didn't do something immediately, he wouldn't be able to resist the onslaught of his brothers and would definitely die. At that moment, when the youth thought about how he got into the samsara bowl, an image of that old man appeared in his mind. He asked him how he could be surprised if he had the cup of reincarnation and the sword of nirvana. Then he asked, has the disciple forgotten his old teacher? Wuxiao asked him if he wasn't dead, and since when is he listed as the old man's disciple? Was he a living corpse? The old man seemed annoyed. He told him that his soul was about to disappear. Let him stop talking nonsense and listen to him carefully. Practice is the most important thing. Martial arts will help him improve his strength. These two from the Qi family don't have access to her at all, and he's afraid of them. Wuxiao asked the old man not to talk to him like he was a little boy, but just to tell him what to do with them. The old man replied that he had already taught him how to wield the Nirvana sword. He could kill people with this one strike. Apparently, he was wasting his time training it. He told him that this sword was in his head. He only needed to strain his brains. The old man carefully looked at Xu Wuxiao, his gaze filled with a mixture of experience and wisdom. He told the young man that he had a hunch that he hadn't yet realized the full power that was hidden in his head. You need to look deep. With that, the old man leaned closer to Wuxiao. He placed a palm on his forehead, and Xu Wuxiao felt something start to change. Swirls of light and shadow appeared in his mind, and then images began to form in front of him, as if he was entering a dream world. It's a mental weapon. It's something that's in his head. All it takes is to strain your brains like he strains his muscles in battle. Xu Wuxiao was surprised to realize that the world of the mental sword had actually unfolded before him. He managed to sense its presence as if he was actually holding a weapon in his hands. It was a tool hidden deep in his mind, and now he was beginning to realize how to use it. Wuxiao felt a flood of emotions stirring his inner world. He was beginning to realize that he really was too limited in his vision. He now understood that his mind was a weapon that could be even more powerful than his physical strength. He concentrated and thought about the Nirvana sword. He seems to have figured out how it works. Yu Feng, who saw from the roof of the building that his friend Xu Wuxiao was in danger, expressed a desire to help him. He said that even if he had to break the agreement with Kyushu, he would still save him because Wuxiao always helped him in case of danger. Lin Qingxi asked him to wait for a while. The young man replied, "How can you wait if he is already going to die? She doesn't care. She kills people anyway. But he likes him, and she's a pathetic demon." The girl asked threateningly, "What did he just say?" Yu Fen replied fearfully that he didn't say anything, of course. He would wait a bit. We sit and wait. Suddenly, they saw a mental sword hanging over the battlefield. Yu Feng said in surprise, "This is a mental sword. Is this a sword made of qi?" Lin Qingxi corrected him. "This isn't a sword qi. This is a path of cultivation." He really started cultivating. Seeing the Nirvana sword raised above him and realizing its divine power, Shai Guangkun immediately urged his brother Shi Guangmeng to get out of here. Looks like they won't make it today. On the roof of the Yufeng building, high above the streets, Yufeng stood with bewilderment and amazement in his eyes. He stared down at the scene below, his heart beating faster as his mind tried to process reality. It was something incredible that didn't fit in with his idea of the world. He whispered, clutching the hem of his robe in his hand, that it was impossible. How could this happen? How did Xu Wuxiao enter the path of cultivation? He watched Xu Wuxiao display incredible skill, how his movements were precise and graceful, how his strength and power grew by the minute. It was like a rebirth. From an ordinary guy, he was turning into a fighter who could stand even in front of the Xai brothers. Yu Fen paused on the roof for a long time, his thoughts running faster than he could catch them. He asked himself questions that he couldn't find the answers to. What happened to Xu Wuxiao? Lin Qingxi smiled her enigmatic smile as she spoke to Feng, as if she knew that Feng had already begun to understand the complexities and mysteries of the cultivation path. The sword is a mixture of elements, a great spark that burns within us and can only be ignited by those who have reached a certain point in their cultivation path. She paused for a moment, letting Feng absorb what she was saying. Then she asked him if there were any people he knew in Lingan City who had crossed the threshold of cultivation and started controlling the elements. Does he know such people? Feng replied that he didn't know who exactly could wield the elemental mixing sword. Lin Qingxi nodded, as if confirming his words. She said that time is the best teacher. Cultivation requires willpower, perseverance, and self-belief. Those who are already in the cultivation realm can become the owners of the sword, a tool that reflects not only external forces, but also internal ones. The path of cultivation is not just about fighting the elements, but also learning about yourself. Feng thoughtfully replied that perhaps she was referring to Crazy Chen Jinghong's sword. Then he asked the girl, did she really think that he, Xu Wuzhao, could compare to Crazy Chen Jinghong's sword? Qingxi replied that this is exactly the case. You don't even need to think about it, it really is. Linen City is really interesting. It is worthy of its predecessors. No wonder he has a contract that no one is allowed to capture him. It's getting more and more interesting. In the end, those watching the fight from the roof of the building saw two corpses on the street. Standing above them, Xu Wuzhao thought that he had spent too much blood on this trick and might have died. At this time, his old teacher appeared again and told him that his cultivation level was too low and he might not be able to withstand the power of the sword. Wuzhou was angered by the old man's guile. Couldn't he have said so earlier? Before he had already used its power? Did he try to kill him? The old man replied that with his reincarnation cup, he wouldn't die even if he didn't think about it. He advised him not to freak out, but to improve and pump up his weak body properly. Then the teacher told him that he couldn't stay here any longer. Finally, he said that the sword of silence was hidden deep in his soul, and he advised him to remember these words carefully. As the old man disappeared into thin air, Wuzhou wondered if this old man was really destroyed. Xu Wuzhou clearly remembered his old master's words. No matter what happens, the first thing to do is always use the Samsara cup. This bowl can turn gold and silver into an energy liquid to restore qi and blood. Wuzhou thought about how good it was that he had absorbed 300 silver taels and obtained 300 drops of energy liquid that would help him restore his blood. After the time it took him to finally recover his strength, Wuzhou decided to quickly join his wife. He walked down the same street towards the Shi family's house. Yu Feng, who was watching him from the roof of the building, was once again surprised at how quickly he recovered, got up and walked on as if nothing had happened. Lin Qingxi repeated again that Linen City was really getting more interesting. Fen asked her what she was thinking. Did she have some devious plan in mind again? The girl turned to face him and asked if he really wanted to know. The young man replied that no, he didn't want to know at all. Qingxi said that she still hadn't figured out what she would do in the near future with a genius who knew medicine and had entered the path of martial arts. Yu Feng thought of Wuzhou with compassion because this little beast is constantly thinking about him. Then he said that he had some other matters to attend to and needed to leave, but before that, he wanted to tell her that he had met two disciples from the heavenly sect at Yu Feng's house last time. The girl asked if Zheng Tianjiao had any ideas about Linen City. The youth replied that he couldn't take care of two things at the same time, but she was too bold. Linen City wasn't a place to be headstrong. Qingxi asked him to find out the details of the two heavenly sect disciples. Feng replied that if this was the only thing he promised, then he would help. Qingxi looked at Feng thoughtfully, and there were echoes of deep thought in her eyes. She told Feng that it was clear to her that his own path was most important to him. His ambitions and aspirations are his own business. She can't force him to participate in something that goes against his beliefs. Feng watched Qingxi, realizing that this was a woman who understood the intricacies of intrigue perfectly and even had them all her own all the time. He told her that he was willing to help her find out the details about those two students, but this would be the last time he would enter into this. He doesn't want to become part of the argument between good and evil. Qingxi nodded understandingly. If he only decided to help her with this matter, she would appreciate it. Fen was relieved that he was able to get his point across. He assured Kingxi that he would find out everything he could about those two heavenly sect disciples. Then the young man said that he had an important day today, and he did not want to do business. He thought about the fact that there was a literary gathering in Linen today, and there must be a lot of girls there. He was determined to find a girl for the night tonight to help ease his sleepless nights. He felt an unaccustomed sense of excitement that spurred him on to meet someone new, especially someone of the opposite sex. Fen was intrigued by the opportunity to spend time with nice girls, chat about literature and mundane things. On the other hand, he understood that his real goals and interests might be far from superficial acquaintances. In front of a large stone house decorated with colorful lights, which created a fabulous atmosphere, people gathered. This time the balloons completed the whole picture, rising into the sky in a colorful cloud. People were talking, laughing, and their voices mingled in a joyous booming hum. The entrance to the house was guarded by two huge statues of lions, carved from granite, as if to demonstrate the grandeur and significance of this event. There was a muted clink of conversation and laughter outside the doors, and the scents of flowers and various dishes created a peculiar stir in the air. Fun and excitement were palpable in the air. Young people dressed up for the grand event gathered in groups, discussing the latest events and exchanging news. Their eyes shone with anticipation, and the smiles on their faces indicated that they were expecting something special. Every corner of this place seemed filled with mystery and joy. People sat in comfortable chairs and benches, maintaining an atmosphere of solemnity and expectation. Behind the stage, colorful lanterns were visible, ready to light up the event. Everything around us was full of anticipation and energy, as if the best moments of people who wanted to share their ideas, inspiration, and passion for the word were being collected. This house was a gathering place for those who believed in the magic of literature and could make it a reality. Literature lovers whispered that there would be a lot of people today, and making new acquaintances is always a good thing. Many people noticed a young man who came to the Jixia Academy literary meeting in an inappropriate way. The literary meeting is held annually, and this child is being too provocative. What a shame for Linen City. Wu Zhao, listening to this, thought that there was nothing so special about it. But he had learned 300 Tang verses. Jixia Academy must kneel before him. Jing Wang walked up to Xu Wu Zhao. He said that for him to meet a genius from Linen City is a surprise. He asked him if it was true that his name was Xu Wu Zhao and asked him threateningly who he thought he was. Why did he freeze? Or was he thinking about how stupid he was? The people gathered at the literary meeting were enthusiastic and engaged in a lively discussion of recent events. Looks and questions were thrown from eye to eye, as if the energy of creativity filled the air of this special place. But among the conversations and positive emotions, the conversation about Wu Zhao took on a new direction. Many people recalled Xu Wu Zhao's recent performance at the Chai family tournament arena. But most of the conversations were about his appearance. Everyone thought that he should have come here in more appropriate clothes. But he seems to be attracting attention everywhere he goes, even in spite of his appearance. Some ladies even found his appearance funny. He doesn't follow the standards and traditions, and this makes him noticeable. It was as if he had come from another world. Such conversations and comments about Xu Wu Zhao were carried everywhere. Surprise was mixed with admiration, and the idea of which path of cultivation he had chosen aroused curiosity. The people present at the literary meeting discussed the young man, wondering that he was not ashamed to come here in this form. However, the young man did not hesitate to say that they were all worthless and warned them not to forget who he was. Jing Weng expressed contempt for him for having the audacity to call everyone worthless. He urged everyone present to come over so that everyone could see who the real trash in Linen Garden was. People came up and said nasty things about Wu Zhao. They said that this kid looked down on everyone, and besides, he dared to go to bed with another woman on the night of the wedding. What a shame. Only animals can do that. They told him to get out of here immediately, because people like him are not welcome here. Xu Wuxiao asked them, so they are all decent gentlemen here. Literature lovers unanimously replied that this is true. The young man said that in this case, he believes that a real man should have a reserved character. Jing Wang immediately retorted, saying that he was still very reserved, since he still hadn't kicked his ass. Wu Xiao bowed to him and said, if he is a decent man with a reserved character, then he obviously won't be angry if he beats him up. The young man immediately accepted his threat. He beat Jing Wang and told him that he would make him very handsome soft so that at least he could pretend to be a real man. The crowd watched the beating in confusion. Jing Wang begged them to stop beating him and claimed that he understood everything. The crowd, however, denounced Xu Wuxiao, calling him a madman. They said that he did not deserve the right to be here and asked him to leave the literary meeting place. The young man replied that he might not be a genius, but he could beat anyone to the punch. Xu Wuxiao walked into the special pavilion, noticing quite a few ladies who were very neat and dressed up on the way. The young man thought that indeed the celebration at the academy was grand. In the observation pavilion, the man sat down in a comfortable chair and began to watch the holiday. He compared the beauty of women and had to admit that no one looked better than his beloved Qin Mo Yufeng came to his pavilion and said that at such a social event he would never get a single lady if he didn't pretend to be a cultured person. Wu Xiao expressed surprise that brother Yufeng would show up for such an event, but in order to get the ladies, he would have to come up with a new plan. He acts so pompous without talents, he'll never get a lady. Yufeng then asked him to teach a couple of tricks to win over girls. Wu Xiao was thinking that this little guy really wanted to compete with him in winning women's hearts. He asked a friend if he could see the two ladies in the back of the park, and which of them, in his opinion, is better. Yufeng replied that the lady in blue robes looked better. Wu Xiao then told him that he would teach him a trick now, that's for sure. First you need to focus on it and let it go with the thoughts that something will happen in the future, but you do not need to show feelings. Then you need to start dominating it, coming up with something extraordinary, and finally, having gained the initiative, he will be able to kill two birds with one stone. Feng praised the tactics of brother Wu Xiao, who seemed pleased and offered him a book he wrote when he was receiving prenatal training. Let him learn it well and keep it only for himself. Feng thanked him and said that he had never imagined that Wu Xiao would pass on such knowledge to him. Wu Xiao stiffly replied that these were just the basics. When Feng succeeds in his training, he will teach him something more effective. Wu Xiao approached Feng with a smile on his face, a thin book with an exquisite binding in his hands, and shared some thoughts from his book with him. Wu Xiao opened the book and found the right page. This was the part where he talked about ways to win ladies' hearts. Wu Xiao began to quote himself, and his voice sounded confident and light, as if he actually believed what he was writing. Love is a tender and precious feeling that transforms our days. However, winning a lady's heart is an art that requires patience, attention, and respect. The first method is sincere interest. Listen, ask questions, and learn more about her hobbies and dreams. This creates a connection and gives you the opportunity to understand each other more deeply. The second is the ability to listen. The time you take to listen carefully can be invaluable. Show her that what she says means to you. The third is to be supportive. It is important to support her in her aspirations and goals, to be there when she needs it. The fourth is to give attention. Small signs of attention can have a big impact. It can be just a beautiful flower or a note with warm words. Wu Xiao closed the book and looked at Feng. He told him that winning the heart is a process that requires feelings and time. He should remember that it is important to be sincere and open. At this time, Yufeng thought that brother Wu Xiao was actually very correct and serious. It seems that people all over the world don't understand his brother. He decided that from today on, he will be his spiritual mentor. He warmly thanked Wu Xiao for his teaching and assured him that now that he had the scripture of truth, he would not return until all the ladies were defeated by it. He asked him for some time and said that he would be back soon. When her friend left, Wu Xiao thought that from a theoretical point of view, he was still a few steps ahead. Interrupting his thoughts, he suddenly saw a dazzling apparition on a bench at the back of the park. It was his little wife. He had finally found her. He went to see her. Meanwhile, Lin Qingxi sat down on the bench next to Qin Mo. She told her that she had come to talk to her face-to-face on purpose. She can't be blamed for all of He Wu Xiao's affairs. She's just worried about her. Why doesn't she get a divorce? Mo replied that it was hard to go against the wishes of her parents, and they also owed the Teu family a huge debt. That alone is enough to stay with him. He's actually a good person at heart, but she just didn't expect him to do this to her. Wu Zhao, who was standing behind the tree and listening to their conversation, thought that now everyone around him thought that he was the one who messed with Lin Qingxi's brain. But he clearly remembers that on the day he came to this world, it was Lin Qingxi who took the trouble to seduce him. What was she really up to? The high-class girls who passed by turned to Ms. Qin and said that they had heard that she was a person of unsurpassed talent who hoped to enter the literary field at this evening's event. They asked her to read something of her own for them. The guests looked at Qin Mo carefully, waiting for her to share a piece of her inner world with them through poems. Qin Mo bit her lip a little as she felt everyone's eyes on her. She felt that she was going to have to open up, share her thoughts and feelings, and this caused her some anxiety. She replied that at the moment she did not have a suitable poem that could satisfy her and the distinguished guests of the literary meeting. Mo replied, trying to stay calm, that for her writing is a process that requires inspiration and deep emotions. She doesn't want to just show off her imperfections. She looked up, meeting the stares of the crowd. She believes that every word she writes should carry meaning and sincerity. I want her poems to sound like they come from the heart. She expressed her hope that someday she would find something that would really make her share it with them. She was asked if she really doesn't want to present her poem, or if it's just that it's made of pushkin, how a pipidast is made of them. The ladies whispered that she couldn't write a poem on even the lightest subject like wine with the moon. It seems that all she has is empty bragging rights. No one had ever seen her write anything. For sure, this is how the Qin family is trying to raise their reputation. If she could do anything, would her own family give up for a one like Wu Zhao? Who does she think she is? The Qin family was mired in failures from all sides. It's only a matter of time before they die. On her wedding day, her husband chose to do what only animals do, rather than touch her. Literary career. She's probably got a lot of shit in her head, just like her badass husband. Lin Qingxi yelled at these ladies and told them to shut up. Mo asked me to keep them. There's no need to pay attention to gossip. Let them say what they want. Wu Zhao, who was standing in the bushes and heard all the insults of his wife, thought that she was humiliated because of him. He must surely avenge her. Yu Feng was rushing towards ex-Xu Wu Zhao, opening his arms for a hug, saying that his techniques were very useful. He had already arranged a meeting time with several girls. Then he stared in amazement at the piece of paper on which his friend was busily writing hieroglyphs. Fen asked what he was writing, to which Wu Zhao replied that he didn't need to know. Then he made a little airplane out of a piece of paper and said that those women at the bottom of the garden irritated him to no end. Someone has to teach them a lesson. After saying that, he launched his makeshift airplane. Fen was surprised by this and thought, what is this technique? Without using internal energy, it can make paper fly. Deliver a message without being detected. Meanwhile, a paper airplane landed on the table in front of the houses that had offended his wife. One of the ladies asked what kind of paper was on the table. Apparently, this is what Kimo wrote. She turned to Qin Kimo and said, I bet Mo will be afraid to read this to the public because she knows that her writing is trash. She decided to see for herself what Kimo had done. No one could understand where the paper on the table came from, and when did Qin Mo manage to write it. The lady began to read. The verse was called Water Song. When did the shining moon first set? Someone asked the blue sky while raising the cup. That man didn't know. He was sitting in the moon chamber. What a year it is tonight. I wish I could ride the wind and get back there, but I'm not afraid of the amber towers. I can't stand the cold in those high places. Today there are along the scarlet pavilions, bowing under silken arches, it shines on the sleep deprived. She was used to not knowing grief. Otherwise, why is it full, even when is it time to be a month? Mortals have regrets and joys. They'd fight and make up. The moon is sometimes dark, sometimes light, calm or waves. There was a rustle among the literature lovers. Everyone was struck by the profound meaning of these lines of poetry. People expressed the opinion that this is just a great work. The guests of the gathering couldn't hide their admiration when they heard Qin Mo's poems. Every line of the poem was like music to their soul. Everyone seemed to be immersed in the atmosphere created by Qin Mo's poems. Her words shimmered in the air like flowers blooming in the sun. The deep emotions that she put into each line were intertwined with the feelings of the listeners. The words of the poem reflected her inner world, and the guests felt how each turn of the phrase gave rise to new images and feelings. Their faces were tense with attention, and their eyes sparkled with delight. After the reading was finished, there was a moment of silence in the garden, as if everyone was deep in thought after such deep and sincere poetry. Cheers then spread throughout the grounds organized for the literary gathering by the Shi family. One of the guests called it a masterpiece that penetrated their hearts. Kin Mo could feel the emotions flooding through her. She wasn't struck by the responses the poetry elicited. She realized that someone very talented wrote these amazing lines and passed them off as her work. People kept saying that it was just a great piece of art. And this is the poem that Kin Mo was dissatisfied with. How wrong they were. Hadn't they called her an incompetent fraud before? These poems, even when compared to the works of the great luminaries of the Jixia Academy, are roughly on the same level. Without exception, the visitors to the literary evening fell on their knees in front of Kin Mo, begging and even begging her to teach them how to write poems. The girl was at a loss. She didn't understand what was going on here. And Xu Wushao was exultant, shouting that his little wife was the best. Mo had a hunch that this poem might have been written by Brother Wushao. All the literary elites in the city saw that Kin Mo had an incredibly powerful aura. On the way to the city, there were two travelers, an old man and his grandson. The old man, with years of experience and wisdom, walked beside his young grandson, who found in every word and action something amazing and important. The journey was short, but it provided them with an opportunity to observe nature in its diversity. At first, the sun shone brightly, giving warm light and joy. They talked and shared their thoughts on life and the world around them. However, the old man suddenly stopped and looked up at the sky. He said that the weather was changing rapidly these days, and there was no way to say for sure whether it would rain in an hour or immediately. The grandson looked up at the sky and saw that the clear sky was beginning to cover with black clouds. His face expressed surprise. This is truly unbelievable. A second ago it was sunny, and now it feels like the sky is changing right before their eyes. The old man nodded, hearing the interest and admiration in his grandson's voice. He said that nature is a living organism that is constantly changing and transforming. It never stands still, it breathes and flows like a living river of time. Soon, black clouds covered the sky, and the first drops of rain began to fall on the ground. The old man and grandson decided to take shelter under a large tree to wait for the rain to pass. They sat there, listening to the sound of raindrops and observing nature, which responded to the changeable weather with its changes. The old man smiled at his grandson, putting his hand on his shoulder. Nature is a real miracle, and her every whim makes the world more diverse and interesting. He asked his grandson not to be afraid of changes, they make their lives richer. There is nothing permanent about nature and life in general, but it is this changeability that makes the world so exciting and amazing. The grandson suggested that the old man quickly return to the city. It seems that there will be a thunderstorm. Sure enough, soon the entire sky was flashing with bright lightning, and the buildings in the city were shaking with powerful thunderclaps. Travelers who were caught on a hillock by the storm saw that lightning had just struck the very center of Linen. The old man told his grandson that it wasn't lightning at all. Someone has entered the path. The entire social audience was incredibly surprised when Kin Mo rose into the air with a sparkling aura. Everyone was in shock. Why did it take off? How can people fly? Literature lovers couldn't believe their eyes. Someone said that she had entered the path. Or maybe it was because of that lightning bolt. This was the Lord's sign, the deity who ignited the moon. This is a talent, absolutely. What's more strange is that this lady doesn't have much energy or level, yet she was able to enter the path thanks to her poetic gift, and all at the behest of heaven. Big changes are coming to Linen City now. In the darkness of the night, two indistinct shadows stood against the walls of the mansion that was shrouded in darkness. One person said that Kin Mo entered the path through poetry. The other added that if she was truly on the path, then their plans were destined to come true. Since she has just entered the path, she has no idea how to use her power. The first agreed with him and said that then they should not waste time. It is necessary to mutilate it. Lin Qingxi walked over to Kin Mo with a smile and warmly congratulated her. She told Kin Mo that she really didn't think that her poetry would be so powerful. Her words enlivened the world around them and filled it with feelings. Kin Mo glanced at King Silly, trying to determine the level of sincerity in her words. She didn't expect that her work would provoke such a reaction from others. Her heart was filled with gratitude and joy. However, Kin Mo also felt a sense of surprise inside. How could this happen? Questions began to rush around inside Mo. Who actually wrote this poem? Why was it signed with her name? Was it a gift from heaven? Lin Qingxi once again congratulated Kin Mo and expressed her gratitude for the pleasure. Unexpectedly, Lin Qingxi loudly warned the girl that she was in danger from behind. A black shadow armed with a curved blade rushed at the girl. Qingxi asked, "Who is he? How dare he attempt murder, even at a cultural event?" Seeing what was happening, the crowd of poetry lovers instantly scattered. The two girls were left alone with a man dressed like a ninja. He had already raised the blade above Kin Mo's head when Su Wusho's voice stopped him. He advised the killer to think carefully before going after his wife. The fallen assassin was embedded in the wall. Wusho anxiously asked his wife if she was okay. Before she could respond, a second assassin charged at the youth, but he was also sent to meet the creator, unable to block any of Su Wusho's blows. The two of them were at the post-reborn stage. But Su Wusho's strength was enough to easily kill the two of them like a salad. He killed two people in the post-reborn stage in one fell swoop. Everyone who watched this lightning-fast match had to admit that it looked like Su Wusho was a lot more than he let on. They had obviously underestimated him greatly. They decided that they probably shouldn't say any more nasty things about him. Kin Mo, finally feeling tired after the excitement of the day, decided to turn to her husband. She looked at her husband and asked him if he was all right. "He looks like something is bothering him." Su Wusho smiled as he felt his wife's concern and attention. He replied that it was up to him to ask her how she was feeling. Kin Mo realized that her husband was genuinely worried about her and smiled back. She said it was important that he knew she was okay. Yes, it was a little stressful, but she got through it. Wusho was surprised that Mo was so strong and took her hand in his, telling her not to forget about her peace of mind. She definitely needs to rest now. Kin Mo nodded, feeling grateful inside for his concern. Su Wusho smiled at her and gently placed his lips on her forehead. Kin Mo felt a sense of peace envelop her. She felt protected and realized that her husband was always there, ready to support her in her aspirations and life changes. Su Wusho asked Kin Mo, "Does it hurt?" She said she was fine. Wusho then suggested that she go with him. The girl asked him what he wanted to do. Mo asked if he was taking her to visit the Shi family. He said it was unmanly not to be able to protect the woman you love. As Su Wusho and Mo walked towards the Shi family's residence, Lin Qingxi tried to dissuade him by explaining that it was the Shi family's stronghold. Wusho advised her to pray that she had nothing to do with it. Mo advised her husband to solve problems at home, not here. The young man did not agree with her and said that he would make sure that the attack on her did not go unpunished. He told her to just follow him. Lin Qingxi was startled by Wusho's words. Did Shai Guanping keep their secret, or was he just using her? Shai Wusho and Mo had an armed guard stationed outside the mansion, and the young man asked him that he was probably eager to lend him his sword. The man backed away in fright and gave up his weapon. Wusho thanked him for his kindness, and the guard nodded and thought that it was better not to mess with such a nutcase. The onlookers watching wondered if Su Wusho was completely out of his mind. He single-handedly dared to challenge the Shi family. It wasn't a fact that Kin Mo only suffered a few bruises. Right now, it would be better for him to swallow his pride and talk to her about it, rather than approach the Shi family. Does he even think about the consequences if he shows off like this in front of his beloved? After arriving at the gate, Wusho shouted at the Shi clan people to get their asses over here. Mo tried to persuade him to go home, but Wusho said that he was not worthy to touch even her beautiful hands, but someone had the audacity to attack her, so he intends to find out everything to the end. Meanwhile, the Shi family warriors ran out to meet him. They resented the fact that someone dared to sneak into the clan's territory. They wanted to know who the Greyhound was. However, the young man quickly dealt with the attackers and told the survivors to call the head of the Shi Sheng family. He needed to see him very urgently. He ordered the rest of them to get out of here, or else he would send them all to the next world. There was some speculation among the clan warriors that Wuzhe was already too tough for them. After all, he easily mowed down the family's guards with one blow. And these people were all at the peak of energy and at the blood stage. With an incredible roar and fire, a huge human monster appeared in front of the youth. He asked if he had the guts to go against the Shi family. Xu Wuzhao smiled and turned to the big man, asking if he didn't recognize him. It's him, his grandpa. The surviving guard reported to the master that Xu Wuzhao had barged in and started a massacre without even bothering to give the reason. Many brothers are wounded or killed. Shi Sheng turned to the young man and said if he didn't give him a clear explanation right away, he swore that even if King Silly himself came here in person, he would still trample him to dust. Xu Wuzhao agreed to give an explanation and said, since their efforts had injured his wife, it was only logical that the Shi family would pay for it. That's his explanation. Sheng was extremely indignant and said that Wuzhao had already lost all fear of the Shi family. This already in any gate does not climb. The onlookers who were watching from behind the fortress gates reasoned that it was very romantic, an outburst of rage because of the encroachments on the beauty. How can you resist such a domineering husband? Qin Qingmo looked fondly at her husband and thought that she was really very important to him. Shi Sheng wondered why Qin Qingmo was still not crippled. Where did these two imbeciles miscalculate? Out loud, he said that the attempt on Mo's life had nothing to do with his family, but on the contrary, he killed a lot of people from the Shi family before collecting any evidence. Was he joking with them? Now he, Xu Wuzhao, was finished. Xu stopped the big man's eloquence and said that he didn't think that the head of the Shi family would be so cowardly that he wouldn't admit to his own actions. He's amazed at how shameless he is. His truth is that he really has no proof, and more importantly, this is his territory. The willing onlookers whispered that it was stupid to go up against the Shi family alone. It was quite obvious. They shouted at the head of the Shi family to spare the young man. He was the son-in-law of the Qin family after all. But Shi Sheng seemed to have a different mindset. He attacked Xu Wuzhao. The territory of the Shi family's estate was covered in ash and smoke from the magic attacks used by both sides. People watching the fierce battle said that it looked like Wuzhao was screwed this time. Is he really going to die like this? Then they didn't see anyone coming out of the smoke. A huge round hammer, the main weapon of the family head, rolled out from the smoke. Everyone was surprised. They couldn't believe that the head of the Shi family was defeated. How is this possible? The head of the Shi family is defeated by Xu Wuzhao. Some Huthed called for revenge for the head and pounce on the winner. The more intelligent ones replied that the head of the clan himself had lost to him, and if they attacked, they would immediately go to the next world after him. Fans and fans of martial arts who watched the epic match said that it hadn't been long since the Battle of the Families, but now even Shi Sheng, with the 7th level of the post-reborn stage, couldn't hold a candle to Xu Wuzhao. This young man is progressing very fast. This is a great joy. The kneeling giant, the former head of the Shi clan, could barely move his tongue as he said that even with his battle technique, he couldn't stop Wuzhao's attack. Why would he have such devilish power? The young man raised his sword over him and said that this was a question he could ask the king of hell. Sheng shouted that he couldn't kill him. If he killed him, Shi Guangping wouldn't let it go. Just then, the aforementioned Shi Guangping entered the manor grounds and ordered Xu Wuzhao to stop. The youth asked cheerfully, "Isn't that young Master Shi?" He didn't expect that he would also be here with the Shi family. He promised to talk to him as soon as he got rid of the big guy. But Shi prevented him from carrying out his plan. He attacked Wuzhao and gave Sheng an opportunity to dodge the blow. The young man expressed regret that he didn't manage to kill Shi Sheng, even though he was close to it. Shi Guangping told Xu to stop already. Linen City is not a place where a puny little person can do whatever they want. Wuzhao asked him again, so he does whatever he wants. He sent his men to prevent him from reaching the Shay house. Unfortunately, he ended them with a single blow, which shows how weak they were. If you compare him, Guangping, to him, he is the one who does whatever he wants. She cautioned the young man against making unsubstantiated accusations. He denied that he had sent anyone, that it had nothing to do with him. At the same time, he thought that this person had killed 2 of his elders and was surprised once again at how much power Xu Wuxiao was hiding. The onlookers continued to gossip. They said that Xu Wuxiao and Qin Qinmo were attacked one after another. It looks like someone is seriously targeting the Qin family, and now Shi Guangping is coming out of the Shi family courtyard. Is this place not so easy? Obviously it's better to stay out of it. At this time, Mo reasoned that when Wuxie was attacked, he pretended that nothing had happened, but when she was attacked, he destroyed an entire family in a rage. She should reconsider her attitude towards him. Xu Wuxiao declared to Shi Guangping, it doesn't matter if he admits it or not. After all, they've been fighting for a long time. He offered him 2 options. The first is to get out of the way and let him finish Shi Sheng off. The second is to fight him to the death. Guangping replied that it was a very interesting suggestion. Did he, Xu Wuxiao, think that he was really afraid of him?